ask for the Greens party to come forward?
Thanks, Damien, for inviting us here tonight, and I'll acknowledge all the many fellow candidates here tonight. My name's Amanda Bresnan. I'm the ACT Greens candidate for Brindabella. I guess I'll just outline some of the views of the Greens in terms of light rail public transport, in particular having integrated public transport. The Greens believe that everyone in the ACT has the right to access affordable, effective, accessible and reliable public transport, and that the transport system in the ACT must be ecologically, socially and financially sustainable. Effective public transport is essential given the challenges of housing affordability, social inclusion and social exclusion, climate change and obviously the rising costs of fuel. People and families should have the choice to leave their car at home if they want to, if they choose to. Innovation and broad community involvement in determining long-term transport solutions for the ACT is very important, in particular for determining what the community needs and views are. We want to see and should be investigating all options for an integrated rapid transit system for the ACT, which services all the major town centres. And as most people would know, the ACT Greens have been calling for quite some time for light rail to be seen as an integrated part or an essential part of an integrated transport system in the ACT. The Greens obviously have been very encouraged to see the ACT government announce they will be seeking federal government infrastructure funding for the light rail, and when they announce a feasibility study, which obviously, as we've been talking about, is going to be performed by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and noting that the draft business case will be completed by late October. And it's also encouraging to see that there will be a light rail reference group established, and as Damien would hope to see transparent terms of reference for that group and see exactly what they'll be looking at. The ACT Greens in the Legislative Assembly would hold the government to account on this and ensure that they follow through on lobbying and pursuing the infrastructure funding from the federal government. And we'd want to see some tangible and definite action on this in sometime in 2009. As I noted, a really key issue for the Greens with any rapid transit system that we establish in the ACT is that it reaches to the outer suburbs. So we're not just servicing the centre of Canberra, but it's reaching to those areas in Tuggeranong, Gungahlin and Belconnen, because people in those areas need to benefit from any system we introduce in the ACT also. We need to make sure also that the community in these areas benefit because they are typically affected or most affected by issues such as the rising cost of fuel, housing affordability, and because a lot of these people have to travel out of these areas to get to work. Obviously, again, one of the key reasons why we need to invest in and develop an effective rapid transit system in the ACT is because of climate change, and that's been discussed quite a bit already tonight. About a quarter of the ACT's greenhouse gas emissions come from transport, and one figure which we've seen is one double articulated tram holding up to 140 people would equate to about 100 cars moving around on Canberra's roads, so that's quite a significant amount. Light rail running on non-green power electricity is estimated by the Public Transport Users Association to produce half the greenhouse gas emissions generated by an individual car. So the ACT government currently sources around about 23% of its electricity from green power. So if you factor this in, this will further reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a light rail system. And an EIS should include an examination of the greenhouse gas emissions, and it's encouraging again to see that John Hargraves has noted that this would be included in an EIS. Also, another issue which is of great interest to us and I think to everyone in the ACT is around the fact that land property values increase around stations also. In 2002, the Master Builders Association pointed out that against the then estimated cost of a Gungahlin to City light rail line of about 80 million, the increased government revenue from land sales from just one estate would be around about 8 million. Numerous studies have shown that light rail or similar rapid transit systems lead to increases of between 10 to 50% of the value of private and commercial properties which are serviced by these transport hubs. If you even take the lower figure of 10% into account, a light rail system for the Molonglo Valley development would almost more than pay for itself. But this obviously is only if it's in place prior to the land being sold, which we may not see obviously in the ACT at present. Planning Minister Andrew Barr was asked by Greens MLA Dr Deb Foskey in June this year whether he agreed that an integrated public transport infrastructure needed to be built before the surrounding land was sold in order for the government to reap the benefits of increased property values. He actually rejected that notion, saying that people can speculate one way or the other as to whether land values would be raised initially by such infrastructure. There haven't been any studies done to determine the cost-benefit analysis of rapid transit systems being in place prior to suburban development. The last government study in 2002-03 was undertaken when oil was trading at around $40 a barrel. On Saturday, oil closed at 127 Australian dollars. So that's obviously an extremely high increase in the percentage from the price in 2002. The economic and social reasons for investing in public transport infrastructure are now obviously even stronger. If a rapid transit system is not in place from the start, families will obviously inevitably buy more private vehicles. This leads to greater public costs for roads and parking facilities, higher greenhouse gas emissions and higher house prices. The New South Wales Sustainability Commissioner, Professor Peter Newman, provides evidence that public patronage of light rail is far greater than pre-existing bus services. For example, if commuters in the Molonglo could use integrated public transport from the day they moved in, they would feel confident that their households would then not need a second car. Public transport infrastructure enhances the quality of life, and it also can enhance the revenue of the ACT with intelligent forward planning. It is short-sighted to continue with business as usual and to base urban planning in Canberra around only using the car. The Greens believe that an integrated public transport system for the ACT is an essential way forward. ACT Greens Deb Foskey also called for that developing the light rail should be part of the centenary in the ACT and that it should include Queanbeyan in the proposal. So it was interesting to hear you note that earlier, Damien. This is because obviously there's a large number of people travelling from Queanbeyan to Canberra every day for their work. So being a cross-border area where people interstate use our services, they travel here for work, we need to look at this also in a regional context. So obviously the Greens will be very interested to see what is included in the business case, the terms of reference, and then the outcomes that come out of that. And as I noted, it will be something which we will be, if we have more Greens in the Assembly and a strong crossbench, very much holding the government to account, whoever is in power, to that. Thank you.
Thank you.